Okay, so today we're going to be talking about juxtaposition in the context of an article that was published in the LA Times called Superman and Me. So we're actually going to combine everything together just to make it a little bit easier for today. So definition for juxtaposition, we're going to go through some examples, and then we're actually going to also include the paragraph, the first reading part together in this PowerPoint. Okay, so juxtaposition. Juxtaposition is the effect that happens when you place two different things together. And so this effect is not just like putting anything next to each other, but it's putting two things that are different to kind of create a contrast together. And now the important part with juxtaposition is you can't just notice it, you have to figure out how it connects to what the author is trying to do. So if we're looking at it visually, on the picture on the left here, you can see that the color is, of course, what makes this one penguin stand out. There are a bunch of penguin in the picture, but the author is drawing our attention to one of them for a specific reason, and we have to figure out what that is. In the picture on our right, we can see that there are two different, kind of representations here of a bird. One of them is completely free, and the other one is not supposed to be there. And so this bird is almost like defying, of course, the rule, which makes us think a certain thing about it. And so that contrast, that difference between these two is what creates the idea. And I want to point out, it's not just color, it could be the idea. And so sometimes you have to realize if someone's talking about an idea, it does not necessarily going to be something that's tangible. Okay, so examples of this in common culture. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. This is, of course, referencing to man walking on the moon. But of course, the small step, which is literally what's happening, the giant leap being the technological leap that's happening, create a nice little contrast. So you can really tell the author is trying to get us to think about what this really means in terms of technology. And by juxtaposing the giant technological leap with the one small step actually being taken, we really understand exactly how important this is. Similarly, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. This is just, of course, an old saying that goes to show that if someone is older, it's more difficult for them to learn something new or change. And so old dog is what makes the new tricks difficult. You need to have both in order to create the meaning. So as you're looking throughout the text, you want to look for ideas that are opposite or different from each other that are placed closely together. This can't just be like any two ideas throughout. They have to be closely linked together, not necessarily in the same sentence, but definitely in the same area. And they have to be playing off of one another. Otherwise, it wouldn't count as juxtaposition. And then once you have found it, you really need to ask, what impact is this having on you as a reader? What am I thinking? What am I kind of taking away from this? Why might the author use juxtaposition? So with that, we're going to jump into the article, Superman and Me by Sherman and Alexie. You can pull this up on your Google Doc. This is an LA Times article that was published in '98, and it's by Sherman Alexie, who is a prominent Native American writer, and it's about his experience growing up on a reservation and the role that education played in his life. Okay, so for our focus for today, we're going to look at highlighting juxtaposition and then inferring what the author really means by that juxtaposition. You will later on, once you get into the reading though, be actually looking for anything that we've covered so far in addition to juxtaposition. All right, so let's jump into it. Superman and Me, paragraph 1. I learned to read with the Superman comic book. Simple enough, I suppose. I cannot recall which particular Superman comic book I read, nor can I remember which villain he fought in that issue. I cannot remember the plot, nor the means by which I obtained the comic book. What I remember is this. I was 3 years old, a Spokane Indian boy living with his family on the Spokane Indian Reservation in eastern Washington state. We were poor by most standards, but one of my parents usually managed to find some minimum wage job or another, which made us middle class by reservation standards. I had a brother and 3 sisters. We lived on a combination of irregular paychecks, hope, fear, and government surplus food. All right, so you might have recognized a little repetition in the beginning there. I cannot remember this. I cannot remember this. I cannot remember this. And then that's juxtaposed with this thing that you can remember. And so I can't remember, I can't remember, I can't remember makes what you can remember all the more important. And what you can remember is this kind of example of how he grew up. And so then we're going to move on from that. And we also see not only is he like directing us that it's more important about how he grew up, he's saying that they actually they were middle class by reservation standards. So we were poor by most standards, but middle class by reservation standards means that it's another example of juxtaposition. Middle class, by reservation standards, that must mean the reservation really doesn't have a ton of money, because if they only had one minimum wage job, and that made them middle class, then this must be a very, very economically depressed area to grow up in, and it seems like that's playing a major role in what his life was like as he grew up. All right, so you're going to continue reading now on your own. Make sure you complete paragraphs 2 through 5. Highlight any juxtaposition you see, and highlight any other rhetorical devices that might stand out to you. Create the comment, and then make sure you're filling out the questions on the Google slide. If you've got any questions, please reach out. Once again, 440-670-6979. Let me know. Otherwise, have a great day, and I will talk to you all soon.